Well, we just had some rain last night, so it is a very humid, semi-hot day this morning. I'm out here at the crack of dawn before anyone else is awake to get some gardening done. Last week it was just announced that the United States is officially in a recession. Now, for me that was a no-brainer. If you didn't think we were in a recession, then you might be living under a rock, because as a consumer, I've noticed the prices of everything that we buy has gone up. And we've been watching this for a while and seeing the writing on the wall, so we've been doing what we need to do to try to get ahead of it. And that really got me thinking about people who have lived through hard times. Now, all of us have heroes or people that we look up to. And the generation that I really admire and really almost feel a connection with are those that went through the Great Depression. I had a grandfather who lived through the Great Depression, and if you know anyone who's lived through it, you know that their lives were changed forever, and not just in the moment. Their habits were changed for the remainder of their lives. Those who went through it remained frugal and were smart with their money and stayed away from credit cards when that became a thing. I remember going over to my grandfather's house, and I say my grandfather, but technically speaking, he was my ex-husband's grandfather, but I did spend a lot of time with him and really enjoyed being around him and learning from him. So we would go to have dinner, but he was so good at being frugal with the way that he even approached eating. Eating to him was eating just to survive. So there wasn't a lot of extra things on the table. And we would joke going in to have dinner there that, okay, where are we gonna have dinner when we leave here? Because being at his house wasn't a filling feeling of, okay, we're like super full now and now we can go on with our night or whatever. And I say this with so much love because it made an impression on me. And I like to try to be like those that I admire. And so I look to that generation and I think, what can I do to be as wise as them? I use the word wise to describe them because they had to learn to be wise with their money, with their time, with their energy, everything. So we are in this recession, and I hope that I am wrong, but honestly, I have thought this since the pandemic began and the shutdowns first started. I honestly thought we're heading for a depression, or at least something similar. And again, I hope that I'm wrong, but it would be irresponsible of me to have had that thought and then not do anything about it to help protect my family and insulate us a little bit from any of the financial heartaches that could be coming. And my husband's job, no one's job is recession-proof. That much is certain. And his is about as stable as they come, but I still realize that we may not have that job forever and we may not have that income. And so we have done things within our family to really help us become wise and be smarter with our time and the energy that we put into preparing for the next few years that could be difficult. How have our lives changed just in the past few months? I'm just gonna run down this list as quickly as I can. First of all, I have decided I'm not buying sliced bread from the store for over $4 a loaf. I'm just not gonna do it anymore. So I got on YouTube and I learned how to make bread. It was a recipe for a beginner who knows nothing about bread making, which I would say, I qualify for that. I am not a cook or a baker. I tried it. It turned out the first time and I was really excited about it. It really got me feeling very pioneer-like, and I like that. Again, some of my heroes were the pioneers that came across the country in wagons, and everything was a struggle, weather and food, and I have a lot of admiration for those people. And again, we try to emulate our heroes, right? So I no longer buy sliced store-bought bread. One of the things that was frustrating for me when it comes to bread making is that I like having sliced bread that are even slices. And if you ever try to cut a loaf on your own, you're not going to get your slices even. So I had some slices that were, you know, like shaved off of the bread loaf. I didn't like that. So I told my husband, I love making bread, but we got to figure out a way to make that part less frustrating. How am I supposed to make a sandwich if the bread slices are like too thick or just a little tiny sliver, because I can't figure out how to do it right? So he found this great thing on Amazon. We had no idea, but they have actual bread slicers that you put your loaf in, and there's a front and a back to it, and go down and make totally even slices throughout the entire loaf. And that was a game changer for me, because it bothered me enough that I was almost on the fence that maybe bread making isn't around to stay. Maybe it was a fun thing and now I can move on to something else. But because we did that, and he also bought me a really good bread knife. Who has a bread knife if you don't make bread? Those two things, getting a bread slicer and getting a proper bread knife, have made all the difference. And I really enjoy making bread, much more than I would have ever thought. So I make bread probably every other day. I do 2 loaves at a time. We're not a large family. The thing about homemade bread is that it does not last as long on the counter as store-bought bread does. So that's why I do try to keep it fresh. As it starts to get a little more stale and a little more dried out, then I try to come up with different ways to use it, even if that means feeding it to our chickens or something like that. The next thing that we no longer buy is ice cream. So we love ice cream, and our kids love ice cream, and we were frequent consumers of Breyer's ice cream or any store-bought ice cream that you can think of. Whatever was on sale, that's what I would buy. It doesn't matter to me. But we have a friend that came over and he brought over some homemade ice cream, and it was so delicious that it kind of stopped us in our tracks, and we were like, what is this? How did you make it? Where do we find it? We ordered it. We recently took it on vacation with us, and our in-laws tried it and they were like, what is this? Where do we find it? They also bought one on vacation and had it delivered to their vacation house. So it's been kind of a fun thing that we're all experimenting with homemade ice cream. It does cost a little bit of money because you have to buy cream, and cream is not cheap, but we get it in bulk. So we just go to Costco and pick it up, and that works for us. And so that is something that is different, that we did not used to make our own ice cream, and now we do. We can make any flavor we want. If you want to go with plain vanilla, then you can add any toppings you want. It takes less than an hour to go from just cream and milk and sugar to full-on ice cream, because the ice cream maker that we have has a compressor in it. So it really is quite fabulous, and that's something new for us. We've never done that before. You don't need any rock salt either. We also stopped buying vanilla. What we're trying to do is learn skills, okay? If we didn't have access to vanilla, how could we make homemade vanilla? And how can we improve on not relying on the stores? So my husband is a chemist at heart. That was what his degree was in college, was chemistry, and he just had fun with it, and he taught himself, again, YouTube videos, reading different, articles and books and whatever. He learned how to make homemade vanilla for our family, and it has been such a success that we even gave some away at the holidays. We just bought smaller containers and bottled it and made little labels with our own label on there. It's getting kind of sprinkly. We may have to stop this video soon. So that's been another great depression-like skill that we have acquired is learning how to make our own vanilla. And it's delicious, hands down the best vanilla you'll ever have. When you think about family time, we used to do pizza night. And I don't know if you've noticed, but not even during the recession, even before that, a pizza night would be like a $50, $60 thing. And there's like very few of us in our house. Pizza just has gotten super expensive. At least if you want to try to buy like decent quality pizza, right? So we have started doing our own pizza nights. And guess what? I make my own pizza dough. I picked the brain of my father-in-law, who is like the best bread and dough maker ever. He's amazing. He makes everything and he knows all the tips and tricks, and I keep trying to convince him to make a video, at least for the benefit of our family, so that when he passes on, we will at least have the skills that he has acquired over his lifetime baking bread. But he taught me how to make pizza dough, and once again, something totally new, a new skill, and I love it. And the pizza dough is amazing. Okay, have I said that before about all these other things? Our quality of food is getting better. We are living in a time where food is more expensive, and we are trying to take on the responsibility of providing for ourselves as much as we can. And it's paying off as far as our taste buds go, because when you start to make some of these things homemade, there's just no comparison to what you get from the store to what you can make in your home. Now is the time to do it. You have access to YouTube, you have access to books, and if you can read and follow a recipe, you can certainly learn to make any of the things that I'm talking about. So we also bought a few items to go into our Traeger grill, and my husband throws out as high as temperature as he can get it, puts the pizza in, and it comes out looking amazing, tasting fabulous. We're really excited when we have our pizza nights, and then we just buy in bulk. And so we go to Costco and pick up a huge thing of pepperonis and freeze portions of it, so that we just pull out a portion every time we're having a pizza night. You put whatever toppings on you want, and it's just fun to be with our family and to be able to make a meal together that our little kids can participate in. Another way our lives have changed over the past few months is that we go on vacation every summer, and this summer we were going to do an extended vacation, and it was basically going to take up all of July. So we booked our place a year ago. We were really excited about it, and then things started to get wonky as far as the economy goes, and we started to see gas prices soaring and food prices rising. Inflation really kicked in. And we saw what was coming, so we looked into it, and we were not able to cancel our vacation plans, because we probably would have if we could, just to be on the smarter side with our money and get that money back, but it was non-refundable at that point. So we went ahead and stuck with our plans, because we would have lost a lot of money if we would have not gone. So what we did was we adjusted our dates and had a great time and brought basically all of our food. I'm talking like moving boxes full of food. I essentially took my entire pantry with me, so but I can still bake bread, and we can still make homemade ice cream, and we can do anything we can do, making our own beans and rice and all these things to go with our meals, so that we could save money that way. So we still had a great time on vacation. It just wasn't the same as what we're used to, where you're kind of going out to restaurants every other night. We didn't do that really. There was only, I think, once, maybe twice, that we ate out, and I'm so proud of us for that, because that's a huge money saver. While we were on vacation, our adult kids were able to pop in for a few days, not all at the same time, but they were able to come in when their schedules allowed. And our daughter, who recently was married and moved off to college, came into town, and she said something that felt profound to me, because I hadn't really thought about it. She said, the one time we ate out, she's like, can we please eat somewhere where there's beef? She's like, I haven't had beef in months since they've been off on their own. And she's like, I'll be biased chicken, because that's what's cheap. And that sat in my head for a moment. And my first thought was, yes, of course, we can go somewhere and we'll get you some beef. Like, that's fine. But then I realized we hadn't had beef either. We shop the sales, and we try to be smart about and strategic about how we grocery shop. So we were in the same boat, and I almost didn't even realize it. I mean, of course I realized we weren't grilling steaks as often as we used to, or at all, but that opened my eyes to our diets are changing. You know, beef is more expensive. And so we have naturally, as part of trying to be frugal and be smart with our money, we've naturally stopped eating as much beef. And if you're one of those people that has a very specific diet and you only eat whatever it is, you know, vegetarian or paleo or whatever it is, if things continue to get worse as far as food shortages go and the cost of food, those things are going to go out the window. You're just going to try to find the cheapest food that you can, the best quality that you can. So something that you kind of need to wrap your head around is our diets are changing because of what we're being faced with right now. You see me out here working in my garden, and this is a cucumber plant behind me that I am pruning up while I'm talking to you, so I can get some kind of, this is on my chore list to do today. Just the fact that I'm up, I mean, I was outside before 6 a.m. this morning, before anyone else is awake, and then I'm out here in my garden. The fact that I even have a garden tells you that our lives are changing. We are not natural gardeners. This is not something, over the years, over our marriage, my husband and I have kind of dabbled a little, and let's plant like a little salsa garden, you know, and we've had some success with that. But it's not, we didn't grow up this way. We didn't grow up gardening and being out super early and doing these types of things. These are all things that we have learned in the last even 6 months, things that we see that we should probably start producing some of our own food a little bit, just in case either we can't find it at the grocery store or we're going to get priced out of buying at the grocery store. We're trying to do what we can to insulate our family. During 2020 and the lockdowns of the pandemic and the increased time that we all spent being in our homes, everyone picked up some new skills, right? If you didn't, I'm so sorry, because that was the best time to learn something new. We weren't able to go out and go to movies or do any of the fun weekend things that we normally did, so my husband and I decided to learn how to make jam. We would always get homemade jam from his mom, who can do it amazingly, and if we ever ran out, we would blame her, and we were like, how dare you have us buying store-bought jam? You know, we'd give her a hard time. Who buys store-bought jam, you know? So we decided we can do this. We're smart people, we're capable. We read the instructions that come with the jam solution that you need to make it, and we watched some YouTube videos, and then we had several nights where we made jam. We learned how to make freezer jam, and then we learned how to make shelf-stable jam where you actually are bottling it, and a lot of work. I want to say that it was a super fun time, but I'm not gonna lie, there was a little bit of shortness and a little bit of frustration and sometimes a little bit of anger, because we're all trying to figure this out and coordinate it. I even forced our daughter, who was a senior at the time, to join in on the family fun, which she was definitely not thrilled about. But I do hope that one day she will look back and think, okay, well, my parents learned to do it, so I can do it too. And it's been a success, and we are at the point now where we are at the beginning of August, and it is canning season, and we are looking forward to making our own homemade jam. We're just waiting for the shipments of fruit to come in from Utah. Another way that our lives have changed and that we are becoming more depression-like is that we are just buying less items. We are consuming less. And even when I say that, I'm even talking about when you bring in less items into your home, you will naturally have less garbage coming out. The other day it was garbage day, and my husband took out the garbage, and I just happened to open it to see, normally it's like overflowing, right? That's like the typical, over the years, what we've seen. We're trying to shove more bags in before the garbage guy comes and picks it up. But when I looked into it, there were like 2 bags. And I'm like, holy heck, we have really decreased the amount of garbage that's coming out of our home because we are consuming far less. We are also buying less clothes. When we buy clothes that are a little bit higher quality now, so that we don't need to be replacing $5 t-shirts. We don't need to be replacing, you know, cheap socks. We buy things that can last longer. As you know, we have young kids, and so we go through a good amount of milk, and milk has become quite expensive. So I thought about that and thought, how can I save money on milk? And I know that there's this thing out there called powdered milk, and I'm like, well, let me try it. Is it as bad as I think it is? As bad as kind of you hear about in movies, powdered milk? Like, no thank you. So we bought some, and we bought it from the LDS cannery, and it comes perfectly packaged in Mylar bags. The box that it comes in says it's good for 30 years. Amazing. So We tried it, and it's very easy to make. You add cold water to a single package of powdered milk, and you whisk it as well as you can and get it nice and dissolved. And what I do is, first of all, I tasted it just like that, and it tasted great. I am a milk connoisseur. I love milk. My family loves milk. So I was really iffy about if this was gonna be a good fit for us. It was delicious. I put some ice in my initial testing because I really wanted it to be cold when I tried it. So you put that in the fridge, it tastes to me just like maybe a low-fat, non-fat milk, which is tasty, and that's just fine. We're used to whole milk, and so what I do to stretch our milk, and the fact that I'm saying that we're stretching our milk, that should give you pause, that we're stretching milk, because I don't want to be going to the store every few days to buy milk full price, because full price right now is more than I want to pay. So if I see that, you know, we're running low on milk, I have a half a gallon left, I will do a couple batches of powdered milk and then add that into the half a gallon. So I can turn a half a gallon into a gallon and a half or whatever the amount is, but I can stretch that milk to last us longer so that I don't have to go to the store. And guess what? No one in my house, not even my husband, I don't even think he notices when I do it, other than I say I'm going to make some milk today. There has been a lot of organizing going on within our home lately. Organizing in the sense that we need to know what we have and where we have it. We have an issue with tape where we're constantly just buying tape, right? Because the tape is never where it's supposed to be. So we have organized our entire garage because it was time. There was a lot going on in there, and so we've been purging things and putting up labels and putting up shelving and all these things. And in that process, I found a place to put the tape. I know that I'm not going to be wasting money buying tape that I already have. And the same idea goes for all the things that we're organizing in our home, is know where everything is so that you can grab it when you need it and you don't need to run to the store to buy something. So the idea of use what you have, repurpose what you have. By changing our lifestyle and doing a lot of these things on our own, as opposed to relying on the conveniences that we used to, as far as eating out, as far as buying prepackaged food, it has really brought our family even closer together, because as we're kneading bread, I have a 4-year-old who, when she sees me making bread, she's like, "Can I help you, Mom?" Like, I just give her some of the dough and have her wash her hands, and there she is with me learning how to knead the bread. Kneading the bread. A while back, I went through a whole minimalism thing, and so I did get rid of a lot of the books that we have in our home. Any new books, we make sure that they are skilled books. Electrical books on if we ever needed to do our own electrical work, and off-grid cooking, anything that we can do to gain knowledge. Another area that we've changed is that I try to only buy foods that are on sale. Now, you can't really do that when you're first starting to build up your food storage. But once you've put together a solid pantry, that gives you the freedom to be able to shop the sales at the grocery store and see what the best deals are. I also started printing out recipes. Normally, I just save a recipe to my phone and that's how I reference it. But if we're ever in a time where, heaven forbid, we don't have electricity or internet, or even if I just lose my phone, I need to find a way to access my family's most popular recipes. If you haven't thought about this next topic, it's time to start thinking about it, and that is self-defense. I'm not going to go a lot into this just for the protection of my family and for our privacy, but if you haven't taken any self-defense classes, maybe that's something you're going to want to look into. If you have never fired a weapon, maybe that's something you should look into. Take as many classes as you can on how to be proficient with whatever your weapon of choice is. But when it comes to the protection of yourself and your family, that responsibility is up to you. So I would not rely on having all of the services and accommodations that we are used to. What happens if you call 911 and because maybe things have really gone south in our communities, there's no one that's going to come? What is your backup plan? Especially if you're a parent. You should absolutely be thinking this way anyway. You got to be able to protect yourself and protect your family, and that's not meant as a fear-mongering statement. It's just facts. okay? It's a way that you should be living your life. Anyway, you're going to want to have the skills, you're going to want to have the tools that you need to defend yourself and defend your family if it ever came to it. If we start heading toward actual depression, which again, I hope that we're not. That's not something that I wish for. That's not something that I have any desire to be a part of, but I will not be caught completely off guard if that is the case. I'm going to do everything that I can now to learn from the past and learn what the people who lived through the depression went through and the skills that they had, and do my best to keep my family as comfortable as I can and safe. We're going to try our hand at trying to make some beef jerky. We do have a food dehydrator that was just gifted to us, I mean just a really long time ago. While I'm thinking about it, if you don't have backyard chickens and you're able to have backyard chickens, we have really enjoyed ours. We got them starting and at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and they have been pretty easy, and it's fun being outside and hearing, you probably can't hear them right now, and hearing chickens clucking, and it's lovely being able to tell our girls, hey, can you go outside and bring in some eggs? I am enjoying all of the new skills that we have learned, are learning, will learn in the future. One last area that I just remembered is that we're also learning how to do some off-grid cooking. And that just means that we're learning to cook outside without electricity. And no, we're not going full on Amish here, but there are some lessons to be learned from the Amish people. If you haven't studied them at all, look up some shows about them, and you'll see the value in hard work and the things that I'm talking about here. Making food fresh in order to save money and have better quality food and have those skills. If we're ever in a situation where you can't get food from the store, what will you do? By learning all these new skills, our goal is really to be able to help other people do the same and to gain the confidence that we are gaining by being able to provide more and rely more on ourselves than relying on the modern conveniences that we've all just grown up with. What if those conveniences were no longer there? How would you survive? How would you feed your family? How would you wash your clothes if you suddenly didn't have electricity? How would you cool your house if you didn't have electricity and you lived in a very hot state like where I live? Things that you need to start thinking about. How would you provide light in your home without electricity? My final tip for you would be solar. Think solar. Solar, anything. I tried to find a solar flashlight a couple weeks ago. Anything that I would be able to set outside and get a charge and be able to use it within the home. That's a win for me. So my mindset has been solar for quite a while, and that also applies to our off-grid cooking experiments. I've said this before in previous videos, but insulate your family now. We are not in a full-blown crisis, and I really hope that we don't get to that point. But if we do, what skills are you learning now to get your family through tough times? I don't feel like I live in fear. Every time I learn a new skill, it actually brings me greater confidence and happiness. This is the sensory life.